how to excel in interviews. I would like to thank everyone for joining. And I hope that everyone is going to learn, whether be it in a professional realm or in a newbie. I hope everyone is going to learn from Juma regarding how to excel in interviews. So, with that being said, allow me to introduce our speaker. He's called Juma Omala. Um, Juma is a WMI graduate scholar who was born and raised in Kenya. Um, he has a Master's of Public Policy at McGill, and he also acquired the Public Health Master's in Public Health from the University of Liverpool. Apparently, right now, Juma is also the executive director at Both Step Initiative, where he like congregates real women and helps them to maneuver in the economic realms, equipping them with skills that they need to run a successful business and gain meaningful employment. Um, just to add on again, Juma is highly accomplished. He's a professional with strong background in public policy, um, strong background in public health, non-profit and government leadership. Um, so I believe this session will suffice you, as I said earlier, will suffice you to help you with acquiring skills, whether be it you are experienced or you are still new in the industry. You just have the skills to excel in interviews. So, with that being said, I would love to lay the floor now to Juma Omanyala so that he may deliver this highly insightful and educative um, webinar, How to Excel in Interviews. And before doing that, my name is Norman Mutete. I'll be the moderator, and Niraja Patsikoti will be the vice moderator or assistant moderator. So, without being said, Juma Umala, may you please take the floor.
Yeah, thank you so much, Norman, for that introduction. Thank you as well, Niraja, for organizing this session. So, yeah, I think both of you guys will just keep me on check if I maybe go over time or if there's any question in the chat that we need to handle. I don't know how to make it more conversational because I don't think the other participants can ask their questions live, but we'll see. So yeah, just keep an eye on the chat and let me know if there's anything I need to handle right away or if it can wait a bit. So I'll try to share my screen. Just give me a sec. Okay, just confirm if you can see my screen. Can you?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay, so what do you see? Do you see the... Is it good?
We see, I think we see the opening slide where a date is written and the topic
Okay,
interviews.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, so this session is interview skills. I mean, we all do interviews, right? When you want to like excel in, get a promotion in your job or even get a job in the first place, or if you want to apply for maybe like a Wells Mountain Initiative scholarship or for any other postgraduate scholarship, they will require you to compete formally, which means you have to do an interview, which means you have to do well in that interview. Norman, please confirm if you can see the names of people on the screen.
Or you mean seeing the name of participants? Is it what you mean? Yes, I think I'm able to see them.
But do you see them in my shared screen?
No, in your shared screen, you don't see them. You are not seeing them.
Good. Yeah, so so there's a question here, does interviews really matter? And yeah, like I shared, it's a very important part of the selection and hiring process. And normally it's basically used to gauge who is the best fit for the job, whether it's a job, it's a scholarship, it's a promotion, like I've mentioned. Each one of us at a certain point in your life, you will have to go through an interview. Am I wrong? That's true, right? So that's why professional interviews are extremely important components of getting into either graduate program, residency program, or employment opportunities. So you should avoid getting into interview unprepared. The thing is that you can have the best resume, you can write a good cover letter. That only lands you an interview spot. But now what sets you apart really from the other applicants is how you're able to carry out yourself during that interview. So if you appear unprepared, then it may leave an reflect negatively on you as a candidate. Most hiring managers can usually detect if you walk into an interview unprepared. So here's some basic facts about interview. Interviewing for a job can be really stressful. And I think you can attest to this if you have like some kind of big presentation where you're supposed to deliver like a speech to like 50 people or so. And maybe they're not your colleagues, they're not your classmates, you're not used to them. So that can be really nerve-wracking, right? So that's the same with the interview as well. And why? Because normally we don't know all the questions that they will ask. If like specific sectors have different questions. For me, when I'm looking for a public policy job or a public health job, at least I can already tell half of the questions that they will ask me. So with that knowledge, then I will need to prepare well before that interview. And then, will you appear nervous? That's another question why interviews can be stressful. And like I shared before, the interviewer on the other side can see if you're nervous, if you're unprepared or not. Now, I do believe that 95% of people are usually nervous during interviews. But the trick is the other person who is on the other side should not see that you're nervous, right? So you can be nervous, but if you go there prepared enough, they won't be able to detect that you're nervous. Another basic fact is you want to make a good impression, right? So someone said there's no second chances for first impression. So once you mess it up, if they ask you, oh, tell us why you want the job, and you start going on and on and on and for 5 or more minutes, and you're not structured, and they can see that, you didn't prepare well, then you've already messed up that first impression. So there's no second chances for first impression. Just remember that. So you have to, as soon as you walk in the door, the interview has already started. So you need to make a good impression. But there's also there's a lot at stake, and you can't always anticipate what will happen. But the good news is that interviewing is a skill. It's just like any other skill. So what that means is any skill you can always practice and improve your that skill. So just like with any other skill, with interviews, if you can improve your abilities if you prepare well. So there's different interview formats, and now with the since 2019 with COVID, is it 2019? Yeah. Things have moved virtual mostly, so that can work for you or against you, right? Because what happens is people assume that, okay, since it's like a virtual interview, I will, just show up anyhow. I won't dress well. I can Google things on the side as during the interview. I can pull up like my notes or things like that and answer. But the truth is, it's still a formal interview, right? So regardless of the format, you still need to show up prepared. For me, what I do is even if it's a phone or a virtual interview via Zoom or Teams or something like that, I still dress up, because that will put me in that element of a professional setup where I tell my brain, now you have to think really fast. So if you show up casual, you're not turning on your camera, you may come across as really someone who is not serious. So again, whether it's a phone interview or a virtual interview, prepare well. If you can, dress appropriately, and then go to this. These are some of the basic stuff. So find a quiet background, strong signal, keep an eye contact with the camera. So the thing is, people look at, you tend to look at the other person, but the other person is looking at you. So the trick is look at the camera straight, because then they think you're looking at them. But so yeah, that's another trick that you can use. But if it is virtual, for me, usually it helps to have some pointers. I'll just have some notes and then just brief pointers, because I already know half of the questions that they will be asking. In my job, they will ask you, what are some of the problem-solving scenarios that you've encountered before? What kind of leader are you, and what kind of skills you'll be bringing in the team, to maybe, make sure the team is working together, things like that. If there's any issues within the team, how will you address that? If you had a different opinion with an employee who is reporting to you, or vice versa, whichever the case, and each of you believe you're right, so how will you address that, right? So I already know some of the questions that they will ask. So for me, I just go through every possible question, and then I just jot down 3 main points that I'll talk about during that interview. And then it's easier if I glance at my note section. You can pull it in the other side of the computer so that and then you shouldn't appear as if you're reading it, because then they can see that you're reading, right? So that's something else that just works for me. I don't know about other people, but yeah, it's okay to, have your notes. Even if it's an in-person interview, carry your book, have a bit of notes. Something else that works for me in person is when they're asking a question, I'd pretend that I'm writing something in my notebook, but in real sense, I'm thinking about, how to respond to that question. And usually it's advisable that if it's totally fine to ask the interviewer to repeat that question, not because you didn't get it, but because you're trying to think about your response. So again, the other format is the on-site interview. That's the most common, where you travel to a venue or a hotel or the organization office, and then you meet the to-be employer plus a few other people who will interview you. So usually for me, I ask, if it's an in-person interview, what other activities are scheduled for the day? It helps to know what the day will look like. And, because sometimes you show up and there's a whole 1-hour test that you didn't prepare for, but then you didn't ask, so you don't know, right? So it's good to just confirm with them that these are the activities that will happen, how long it will take, double check the venue, and then you'll be good to go. There's also a group interview that I have been a part of as well. Here, mostly they're assessing your leadership style and how you relate with the other colleagues who apparently are also competing for the same job. So they'll be looking for someone who can be able to control the room, like be the chair, sort of, and guide that discussion. So from my default, if I can share with you, is I usually volunteer to take notes. Because if you are taking notes, you're paying more attention, and then you're able to, piggyback on certain points that you've wrote down just to confirm. Oh, so you mentioned this, or to add on something, or to clarify, So you come across as being really curious and taking lead in terms of taking notes. So my advice here is, if you ever find yourself in a group interview, please volunteer to take a role. It could be you're the chair or secretary. If not, because other interviewees will be running to take those roles as well. So, but if you don't have any role to play, just ensure you're contributing to the discussion. You're not cutting people off. You're following up on other people's questions. Just be engaged, and then you should be able to stand out, not in a rude way, cutting people off, or trying to talk all the time. If you're good, you're good. They'll be able to see. And then a panel interview is where you have more than one. So the way it works in Teams or Zoom is you're one candidate, but you have multiple interviewers. So you'll be interviewed by maybe 1 or 2 people for 15 minutes, move on to the other room, get another 1 or 2 interviewers, another 15 minutes. So you'll be making rounds, right? Sometimes it's good because you're able to learn from the mistakes that you did in the first 15 minutes, and then you're able to improve on those in the other one. Because what tends to happen is, if it's a full hour with just one person, and then you start on the wrong footing, then it's more like the whole interview is kind of, going southwards, right? But if there are different people, then you have a chance to really improve. Now, some tips just before interview, and this may seem like basic, but you still have to do it, right? So do your research. Like, I can't stress enough about being able to do your research. So how do you do your research? That's another question. So spend some time learning about the company or the organization that you're applying to. You can do a simple Google search, look at, their history, mission, the team that you'll be working with, who your supervisor will be, explore their website and look at any blogs, any news release, anything they've participated in, and see what you can find. If you cannot, then it's also advisable to check out their social media channels, because that will give you a bit of information about the issues that they really care about. If this is an interview for scholarship, you can talk to people who, have gone through the same scholarship in the past, people who can still remember, some of the questions that were asked, or they can have some tips that maybe worked for them why they were selected. So it's really helpful to talk to other people. If it's a job, then the people within the same company that you're trying to get into, they will have more insight. That's totally allowed to reach out to the HR or another colleague, someone else who works with that company, and interview them. It's called informational interview, to gather more information about the role that you're applying to or the organization. And then review the job listing as well as part of your research. You want to tailor your responses as much as you can to respond to those the job description and the tasks that you'll be doing, because otherwise you don't want to be generic, So the other thing is you can investigate the organization, from a simple Google search, if it's a private company, for instance, who are their competitors, if it's a product, what prices other people are selling the product at, what's the value addition, what else can you, as a new person who doesn't know the day-to-day activities, what can you think even before joining the team that will be innovative and make it more competitive, or just something like that. If you know your interviewer, now there's LinkedIn, right? So you can stalk them there. You can see their interests, what they like, what they care about, their past experiences. So if they worked at a nonprofit organization 10 years ago, and now they're working with government, it's just good to know and have that kind of info, because then if you bring up stuff about nonprofit organization, then you're on the same page. You're making a friend there. In your research, don't forget to go over your resume and the cover letter that you submitted for the job, because sometimes some of the questions will be asked directly from that, and then you're caught in a weird situation where you don't remember what you wrote, right? Or some of the things that you said in your cover letter. So just make sure you go over that, and then prepare several examples from your previous experience, any milestones, challenges you faced, successes, because they'll be anticipating that you will be talking about that in the questions that they ask. The other thing is anticipate the questions and plan your responses. Like I said, you need to familiarize yourself with common interview questions in your industry. If you're like a medical doctor, I saw some medical doctors here. I don't know how your interviews usually go, but I think that you already know what they'll be asking, right? So familiarize yourself with those kinds of questions. If you need to read about the things they will be asking, those technical aspects, then yeah, prepare well in advance. And think about the most important thing that you want to communicate. If after you leave the room, if you are like 10 interviewees, what will they remember you most about? Is it just one thing that stands out from your entire experience, that when they think about all the candidates, they'll be saying, oh, the one who, is running a non-profit, or the one who, if it's some kind of innovation that you did, or some kind of leadership experience that you had, just one thing that you want to communicate. So write your responses down and then study and refine them. I don't know, like different things work for different people, but that doesn't work for me. But if you can, once you know the questions, please type out the responses that you'd be, responding to the interviewer. For me, I just need pointers, and like 3-4 pointers, and then I'll know what to talk about. But for other people, you have to write it down, practice it, and then refine as you move along. But that takes a lot of work as well. So you should be prepared to do that work. So like I said, different things work for different people. But the one that you should write regardless is that elevator speech. It's like a one minute speech that they will ask you the very first question. So tell us about yourself and why you want the job, or just simply tell us about yourself. And 3 out of 4 cases, they don't grade this question. So what you should not do is go talk about all that you've achieved in 5 minutes and keep going and going and going and talk about everything else. Then in the real interview, you don't have anything else to talk about. So this question is, because it's not graded, it's just to help you settle in, feel more comfortable. And then hopefully you feel good, you feel that you've settled in the interview. So my advice here is write something that is just 1 minute or 1.5 minutes, depending on the job that you're applying for and your experiences. Mostly you need to focus on like your passion, things that are, things like your passion, things like the skills that you have that stand out, that match the job that you're applying for. For me, usually I talk about, I have to say my name because it's a different, it could be you're represented by someone else. So my name is so-and-so. You will, if you're still a student, you tell them what you're studying, the school you're studying, which year you are. If you're a professional who is already working, then yeah, currently I work with this organization as ABC. I have like, if it's a managerial role, it's usually good to quantify the number of people that are reporting to you, just so that they see the scale of the work you're doing. And then you can usually go back to employment experiences, just high level. In the past or previously, I've worked with organization ABC as program manager, focusing on policy work, informing government policy decisions, something like that. And then sometimes it helps to give the years of experience that you have. I have over 10 years experience in this industry, or 2 years of knowledge I took a course on this for 3 years. Like, it helps to quantify those things. And then any accomplishment that stands out, and then just pick one accomplishment and try to break it down a bit. So like if it was a fundraiser, how much money you raised in what period, what was the impact of, if you raise money to buy sanitary towels, well, how many kids did you reach with that? Like something not vague enough. It's high level, but not vague, but you're going in detail. But in 1.5 minutes, don't talk a lot about those things. And you can conclude by giving one of your interests. So for me, in this question, it's important that I feel settled in. Someone has their hand raised.
No, you can continue so that we may address the questions after you finish.
Okay, sounds good. And how much time left do I have?
Or you have it around 10 minutes left.
Okay, good. So yeah, here you can, like, one of your interests, or so if I'm just reflecting back on the Chevening interview that I had years ago, and they were asking, so what brings you to the UK? So, I stated, yeah, I really like the red buses in London. I want to ride in them. Or like, it doesn't have to be so serious, but again, you need to know the line which you can push, right? I really like Manchester United. I'm looking forward to attend some of those games in person. It shows that, you know a bit about their community. You're really vested in trying to, get in there and experience that life. So you can throw in one thing there that makes them think, oh, okay, this one did their research, right? And then talk about, know your strengths and know how to talk about your weaknesses as well. So weaknesses, normally there's a question about, so tell us your strengths. So what people say is they go on and on and on about the skills you have, and then tell us about your weakness. Then you don't have any weakness, which is not true, because everyone has a weakness. It's just about how you frame it, So you need to frame it in a way that, yes, this is my weakness, and I'm doing ABC to work on it. I'm improving on my presentation skills. I always ask my supervisor to give me such opportunities. I'm already taking a course on public speaking, so it's a weakness, but you still find ways to talk about how you're addressing it. So the other thing is you need to prepare your questions. The questions could be, it's different things, I'll talk about that later, but you need at least to ask at least 2 questions. And also look at the time you have left. If it was 1 hour interview, you have 5 minutes left. Please don't ask like 5 questions. You can ask 1 or 2. But always ask a question, even if it's 1. If they take long to explain it, then say, yeah, that's I'll follow up with an email if I have more questions. But always have a question, because it shows you're really interested in the role. And then don't ask questions that are in the website, or, that you can easily get. The last thing here is practice. We've talked about that. Ask a friend if you want to do like a mock interview with them. Please, that works for people, because then you're able to see where you are hesitating, and then you can go back and work on that. Even if you don't have a friend, you can have a mirror in front of you and try to practice because then if they ask the same question, you're more confident in answering that. So whatever works for you there. Yeah, and plan how you will approach a question you're unsure about. So for me, what I do is I can twist it around. I can ask for clarity about what I think. So I'll say, oh, so you mean that ABC, right? So throw it back to them. They will rephrase the question. Meanwhile, I'm thinking about what to say. But don't say, I don't know. So you can say, I don't know, but this is what I think. And then go ahead to give your thought. But don't say, oh, no, I don't know. I've never encountered that. And then don't forget to sleep well, feel rested. And then on that day of the interview, please dress professionally, neatly pressed, clean clothes. Well, now with the tech world, the different preferences in terms of what to wear, but just be clean, be neat, not too casual, not too large or small or revealing or flamboyant clothes or like perfumes all over and, like jewelry. Those are really destructive. So keep away from them, at least just for one day until you get the job. And if you're unsure about the dress code, always ask. You can ask, or you can just wear something neutral. White shirt. Yeah, you know what I mean, right? Not too bright colors, but some employers don't really care. So you need to be clear on that. Again, once you get into the venue of the interview, then your interview already starts, which means you have to be nice to people in the office. You have to talk to them professionally, greet them. Don't let your ego take over. Confidence has a significant impact on how you are perceived by the interviewer. So just make sure you're confident. Turn off your phone. It's a distraction. If you can, maybe put it in silent. Smile. Always ask names and remember those names and refer to the person by name. There's a really good feeling if you can address someone by their name, someone you just met. So pay attention to that. And then just stay excited about the whole job situation. So during the interview, so it's a two-way thing. And this, as you progress in your career, you realize, like even right now, I'm really picky about the jobs that I'm applying for. Because, at a certain point, you want things like, I'm looking for a hybrid job. It's not about salary anymore, right? That is a part of it, but not the entire picture. So you're looking at different things. You're looking at what are the benefits? Is there like, what does their health insurance look like? Things like that. So you are also evaluating a company and the interviewer. It's not just one way. So that's why, like, yeah, you need to really be careful. But of course, when you're just starting your career, you should keep your options open so that you're not narrowing down to one specific thing. But yeah, what I meant to say here, it's a chance for both the interviewer and the interviewee to interrogate each other. If it doesn't work for you, then yeah, it doesn't work. The behavioral style interview is one of the most commonly used based on the idea that your past experience predicts your future behavior. So you see them talk about, tell me about a time when this happened. How did you react? Describe a situation, things like that, those types of questions. So give specific examples from your experience and then use the STAR approach. It seems like a cliche, but is still one of those best approaches that you can use in your responses. In terms of body language, use a firm handshake, keep direct eye contact, stand tall, don't lean back as if like you're very comfortable. You know, you need to be confident, but not so comfortable. There's a difference. And then remember to smile. We've talked about that. So the STAR approach, I think we all know this: situation, action, task, results. Please go like in each of those scenarios, just create this in your head, and you can practice this. The more you practice, the more you get it, right? So situation could be if it's advertising company, advertising revenue was falling off from whichever company. So you can cite a few numbers there compared to last year. And then, so that's the situation. The problem is the revenue was falling. So what was the task? Focus on your own task, not that the group did this, I did this, you know, even if you are part of the group, but what were your specific actions that you performed? So maybe it could be that you generated new ideas or material that would help the organization raise more funds. And then the action, now those are just ideas. What action did you take? You gave ideas, okay, yeah. So actions, so you can say, I came up with a communication strategy, like, I don't know, whichever field it is, just create something that shows the situation, task, action, and results. Results could be mostly you want to quantify this, like we talked about before. So if you have any questions on this STAR approach, please let me know. It's a whole another topic that requires a separate discussion, but it's a really important one. So that's still the leading recommended approach, I think. So some of the questions that you can ask at the end of your interview. So questions about the organization itself. How does the organization define and measure success? The biggest challenges, opportunities facing the organization right now? Where do you think the organization is headed in 5 years? In 5 years, what will be the outlook of the organization? What gets you most excited about the company future? You know, and then you can have some questions about the role itself. Tell me about the day-to-day responsibilities. Like, yeah, those are the things you need to know. What are the most important skills for someone in this role? How is success evaluated? What does performance review look like? Is it the process? Is it, am I getting fired because I underachieved something? You know, you need to set those expectations from the beginning. Most organizations provide professional development. So you need to be clear about what kind of training are available you can take. Does the organization offer continuing education? If I wanted to pursue a master's degree, am I paying for it or the organization? If they're paying, what's the obligation? Am I staying here for another 5 years? You know, because those things really, sometimes you're like, oh yeah, they're paying for my master's, but then you have to stay there for a certain time. So good to clarify those. There's a lot of questions that you can ask employers, and if you want to hear more about them, let me know. So after the interview, please always follow up with a simple thank you email or card, whatever it is. this goes a long way, really, to show the interviewer you're genuinely interested in the position. So usually the recommended time is within 24 hours. If you forgot, within 48 hours, it's still okay, but then don't extend it until like next week or something. So that's a lot. There's still a lot more to talk about, but I think that that's the time. I've exhausted the time. So just inviting again Norman or Niraja.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Omala, Juma Omala, for the very insightful webinar. Just as a fun fact, I just want to share this fun fact. I know it's Googleable information, but then does everyone know that the success rate of being successful in an interview is actually 20%, meaning that 1 in 5 people are successful in an interview. It just shows the gravity of how many people fail or lack having the tacit knowledge that is required in an interview. With that being said, thank you very much, Mr. Juma Omala. So this now is time for question and answers. To anyone who has any questions, you can write them in the question and answers so that Mr. Juma Omala can help us. While we are waiting for any questions, I have got my personal question, Mr. Juma, that I wanted to ask you. That you know, how can I like really communicate my future job aspirations while in an interview? Saying, for example, I'm being interviewed as an operator, but then I would need to show that my aspiration is not end up being as as a plant operator in the long run, but then I would need to to be to be promoted at some point. How can I effectively communicate that?
So if I heard you correctly, Norman, is you're like in a profession that you wouldn't want to be in the long run, or
I would want to be promoted, like
yeah,
yes, not being yes, the profession will be it, but
yeah,
then how can I now communicate like in a professional way that I would like to get a promotion if there
yeah,
is any? Yes,
yeah. So this is people have different opinions on this. My opinion is just get the job first, settle in,
yes,
show them what you can do, and then the promotion will come even without you applying for it. Like if you really did a good job, they should be able to see that. But this thing about tell us in 5 years where you'd like to be, I don't talk about promotion or, mainly because the person interviewing you is like in that position, right? So immediately they're like threatened, like, oh, you want to come and take my job, right? Or like you'll be posing as a threat or something. But
yes,
I handle that very tactfully in terms of I want to grow my skills. I don't want to say, oh, so that I can go for this role. No, that will, the time for that will come. So now I'm just
okay,
concentrating on developing my skills further. If it's on public policy, my field, I want to be able to write policies that will influence decision making, not only just write them and shelf, like I want to get deeper into, I want to know more about, how effectively we can engage decision makers to make sure that those decisions they're making are addressing the real needs on the ground. So then how do I do that? Like I have to sharpen my policy skills, right? So I'm not talking about, in 5 years, I see myself being a general manager in this company, with 10 people reporting to me directly, so that I can showcase my leadership skill. So me, I focus on the soft skills that I'll be developing, whether it's stakeholder relationships, building communication with other departments or other organizations, or, across government, or with other governments in other jurisdictional areas. And the thing with the soft skills, they go like, there's a lot of them. So that's what you want to focus instead of saying that you want a promotion later on.
Okay, thank you for that. For the second question, that Anuma Sadeti is brought forward, he's saying that how can I like successfully negotiate salary? For example, in many job interviews, they normally ask for salary expectation. So what's the best way to answer that question? And do that person have to say less, or you have to suggest a higher salary?
Mm-hmm. So again, that's another session, which Niraja and team, you might want to consider hosting that for another time, but that is a big factor. So I'll tell you what I do, because different things work for different people. I try to get information from the inside on like the range that they're offering. If I can't get to an employee there, I would try to do some Google search. What's the general range for this role? And with this scale of the company, right? If I don't get anything, then I usually just look at what I'm earning now. I want a raise from what I'm earning now, because that's why I'm looking for another job, right? And you want to calculate your expenses and all that, add them together, plus what you're saving, and then quote that. So, and my last job before I went back to school, that's what exactly happened. Was I got, I would say 200% raise from the person who was there, the person who was in that role, simply because I was able to tell them my expenses. And that's why I'm quoting this amount. But then you don't stop there, because you have to back it up and say, this is why you need to pay me this way. I have like all these types of experiences. I'm a professional in this field, like I'm the best, like not the best, but you know how to say that.
Yeah.
They will pay. If they can't reach that, they're losing a very good candidate, and that's not your.
Okay.
And then you will get from the negotiation, if they are able to meet you. Normally, they will go something below if they're really interested to take you. And then if it works for you, then take it, but agree on a plan to try to increase it.
But then wouldn't you come up as being an arrogant person if you start beginning and saying that, I've got this amount of experience, I've got this skill. Like, how do you now showcase it and not show being arrogant in the same time, like simultaneously show your skills and at the same time not being arrogant. It usually goes hand to hand.
Yeah, no, I don't. I know what you mean, but if I have these specific skills and I'm earning this amount right now, yeah, I mean, you're paying for my skills. I didn't go to school to like get some low salary, right? So every one of us want at least that raise. The difference is how then you negotiate or argue your case, right? So for me, backing it up means, I have to show why I'm worth the amount I'm asking. But you should be also in that process flexible, in that if they suggest something that would work for you, please
Yes.
don't say, oh, just pay me like you pay your other employees. What if I'm paying like, other employees like a very low salary? So for
Yeah.
me, it's not arrogance. It's just how you
Yeah.
package it in a way that you're able to back up what you are asking for.
Okay. So there's this last question from
Mhm.
in attendee. Maybe you can just wrap it up in less than 1 hour. I know it's more of like a reiteration. You've explained this before. You're saying that when attending a job interview, should I now dress the way that makes me comfortable, or I should dress regarding to the dress code that would be provided?
So usually for dressing, I would say, depending on your field, I know tech people would put on a jeans and a shirt or a t-shirt.
Yes.
I prefer something professional, something you're not overdoing, but you're still looking professional, very clean, with neutral colors, like not yellow, really yellow, and like those shouting. No, for dress code, I usually make sure I ask what's the expectation in the company, how should, just ask. Those
Yeah.
HRs or hiring managers are good at giving that information because they can already see you're asking about the organization culture, right? So you're already
Yes.
thinking as being part of the team, which works for you. So for dressing, I'd say just something professional
Okay.
as a default,
Okay.
but of course you can always ask.
Okay. Oh, so thank you very much, Mr. Juma
I
Omala.
see Sarah has
Personally,
the hand raised. I don't know if it's from before or,
Sarah.
oh, no, okay, sorry.
Okay. Um, so
No,
I was saying thank you. I was saying thank you very much for the webinar, insightful webinar. Personally, I've learned a lot. Um, I've learned regarding different types of interviews that are there, the visual on site, in the group, in the panel also. We have learned a lot, regarding how to know to be arrogant, how to prepare your questions, answering confidently, sleeping before interview, you know, like there is a lot of content that we have learned, and I hope everyone else, and I'm sure everyone else can testify that what we are now after this 1 hour session is like 100% better than what we used to be. It's 1 hour before. So I would like to express my thanks, my gratitude to you, Mr. Omala. Thank you very much, and also expressing my gratitude to the GAB for hosting um this webinar. Um, so I believe for the people who are asking about the minutes will be posted by tomorrow, and the recorded session will be will be sent to you either by email, or a link will be made to you. Um, so with that being said, I would love to thank everyone else, the attendees for attending, and everyone else who have attended. So thank you, Mr. Omala, and the rest of the attendees and the GABE members. So I think time up. So
thanks.
goodbye, everyone. Thank you very much.
Okay, please let's connect in LinkedIn. And if you have any questions, let me know. Okay,
No problem. No problem.
bye.
So
All right.
yeah.